Ashes of defeat. General Athlon stood at the edge of the cliff, his four-jointed fingers curling around a jagged piece of scorched stone. Below him, what remained of the Velkarii city of Tr Vale smoldered like the husk of a funeral pyre. Twisted metal ribs of fallen towers jutted into the blood-orange sky, and the wind carried the stench of ash and ionized flesh. The war, for all intents and purposes, was over, and the Velkarii had lost. Behind him, the remaining members of the war council gathered in the crumbling bunker complex. Once a proud, underground nexus of strategy and diplomacy, it now smelled of rust, blood, and desperation. Power flickered unreliably. The AI core had long since gone dark. 70% of our defense grid is offline, said strategist Varys, voice brittle as dry leaves. The last of our fleet retreated 3 cycles ago. We cannot mount another counterattack. Our reserves are spent. And the Xarn? Athlon asked, though he already knew the answer. They're advancing across the western plains, Varys confirmed. Their shock units will reach the capital shell within the day. There will be no survivors. Silence fell. Even the air seemed to still, as if afraid to speak what they all knew. There would be no reinforcements. The Galactic Coalition was shattered. The humans were a ghost story. And the Velkarii, once one of the oldest and proudest species in the Orion Arm, were staring into extinction. Athlon clenched his jaw, 2 of his back molars grinding together. We will die fighting. Honor is not enough, Varys said, almost apologetically. Then, as if the universe had heard their surrender, the room dimmed and a pulsing tone echoed through the command table. A signal, unencrypted, yet laced with unfamiliar military cadence. Varys turned toward the console. It's not Coalition code. Unknown origin. High-frequency type band. Routing it through visual. The hologram shimmered to life. Static washed over it, then cleared. A single line of text scrolled across the screen. Reinforcements inbound. ETA, 12 hours, standby. Unit designation, Relentless. No logo. No symbol. Just a call sign. Silence returned to the room, heavier now, charged with something new. Not hope, but confusion. Relentless, Varys repeated. That's not one of ours. It's a human designation, Athlon said slowly, as if trying the word on his tongue after years of disuse. The room stilled again. For centuries, humans had been the dark myth whispered by tacticians and war historians. Creatures born of conflict, masters of adaptation, and, some said, insane in their methods. The Coalition had once courted them as allies. The humans declined and disappeared into the black. Theories ranged from civil war to self-destruction. Either way, they had been gone for a long time. Gone, but not extinct. Varys leaned in. Could it be a Xarn trick? Athlon shook his head. The Xarn don't bluff. They don't understand psychological warfare. If they send a message, it's a threat or a declaration. This is something else. 12 hours. The clock began to count down in the corner of the screen. The bunker's failing lights flickered again, and somewhere above them, the sky rumbled, not with thunder, but with distant artillery. A young officer burst into the chamber. The capital shell is under orbital scan. The Xarn are locking target coordinates. We estimate bombardment in 8 hours. 8 hours until extinction. 12 until salvation, if salvation existed at all. Athlon looked at the hologram again. Relentless. He turned to his counsel, voice iron. Hold the line. I don't care if we fight with our claws and teeth. We delay them. We bleed them. By time, whatever happens, they will not say the Velkarii died running. He left no room for argument. Warriors straightened. Officers returned to terminals. The war, though lost, would rage a few hours longer. In the skies above, black clouds gathered. Not smoke, but storm fronts from incoming craft. They had lost the war, but something was coming, and it did not come to negotiate. The arrival. The Velkarii skies had not known thunder for years, at least not the kind made by weather. But now the heavens roared. General Athlon stood atop the primary defense ridge overlooking the capital shell. The early morning light was fractured by a high-altitude descent. hundreds of streaks cutting through the clouds like burning daggers. No identification tags, no coalition signatures, just raw, unfiltered speed. A comms officer shouted, unknown vessels breaking Atmo. Hundreds, maybe thousands of small pods. No response to hails. Are they Xarn? Varys asked, stepping beside him. Athlon narrowed his gaze. The trails were wrong, too direct, too chaotic. The Xarn descended in formation. These craft fell like meteor storms. And they weren't slowing. No, Athlon said. They're not Xarn. One pod slammed into the battlefield just outside the outer trench, carving a crater in the ground. Then another, and another. Dozens, then hundreds. The Velkarii defense line panicked, raising plasma shields and readying weapons, until the first pod cracked open. It hissed as its hatch exploded outward. A towering figure stepped out, encased in dark alloy armor with a matte finish and streaks of carbon scoring. No insignia, no banners, just brutal utility. In one hand, it held a rotary projectile cannon. In the other, a combat knife the length of a Velkarii forearm. The human's voice came through local comms. Friendly. Clear your lanes. Athlon didn't need translation. The tone alone made it clear this was not a request. It was a warning. And then the humans poured out. They moved like predators. Not a rigid column, but a flowing force. Each unit autonomous, yet perfectly synced. Their weapons were loud, crude by coalition standards, but devastatingly effective. The first Xarn wave that met them crumbled in moments. What had taken Velkarii artillery units hours to hold, the humans reclaimed in less than 5 minutes. One Velkarii soldier, young and bloodied, stared as a human fired directly into a charging Xarn brute, then tackled the beast, knifing it through the throat with a roar of triumph. The human rose, drenched in blood, laughing. They weren't just fighting. They were enjoying it. By midday, the humans had established a forward command post inside the remnants of an abandoned industrial zone. Athlon arrived under escort, his mind torn between awe and caution. He was brought into a makeshift command tent, little more than a plastic dome and half a dozen digital projectors. Inside, maps lit the walls, Xarn positions marked in red. Standing over them, hands on the table, was their leader, Colonel Elias Ward. He looked older than Athlon expected, hair graying at the temples, face scarred, eyes dark with sleepless fury. He wore no ceremonial rank, no dress, just matte black combat armor and a sidearm holstered low. Ward looked up as Athlon entered. You're the one still calling shots. I'm General Athlon, Velkarii Command. Ward nodded once. Colonel Ward, Human Expeditionary Corps. You're real, Athlon said before he could stop himself. A small smirk tugged at the corner of Ward's mouth. Last I checked, we thought your species had vanished. We did, Ward replied. Now we're back. Why? Athlon asked. Why now? Ward looked at the projection of the Velkarii capital, then to a flashing beacon marked as the primary Xarn command node. Because we finally finished bleeding, he said, and now we're here to make them bleed. Athlon studied him. There was no diplomacy in the man, no posturing, just an iron will behind weathered eyes. You're outnumbered, the Velkarii general said. Ward glanced at a monitor showing real-time footage of human units leapfrogging through enemy lines with brutal efficiency. We like those odds. Another human officer entered, saluting. Recon confirms the Xarn are rerouting assets. They're spooked. Good, Ward said. Let's make that fear permanent. That night, for the first time in months, the Velkarii camps didn't hear only screams and bombardment. They heard something new. Laughter. Rough, human laughter around fires and ammo crates, mixed with metallic music and the occasional explosion from a drunken demo test. These are not soldiers trying to survive. They were soldiers who came to win. The sky had opened. The ghosts had returned. And they were not done fighting. The counteroffensive. The next morning began with fire. A coordinated strike across 3 fronts. Human units led the charge with the Velkarii close behind, though led was perhaps the wrong word. The humans didn't advance in lines or formations. They surged forward like a pack of wolves, flanking and overwhelming Xarn outposts with raw aggression and precision. General Offlon had seen countless wars. He had studied coalition doctrine, participated in tactical symposiums across 5 systems. Nothing had prepared him for this. He stood beside Colonel Ward on a scorched hilltop, overlooking the battlefield. Xarn positions were crumbling one by one, their rigid formations collapsing in the face of unpredictable assaults. Human fire teams moved in staggered wedges, covering each other with overlapping fire, shifting positions mid-battle without orders. "They don't retreat," Offlon said aloud. Ward chewed on a caffeine tab and nodded. "We don't train for that. Your soldiers act independently." "We don't raise soldiers," Ward replied. "We raise war fighters, thinkers, killers, each one trained to lead if the rest fall." Below them, a squad of humans used stolen Xarn plasma packs to collapse a defensive tunnel. 2 of the human fighters were injured. One limped, dragging his leg behind him. He refused to be evac'd. "Insane," Offlon muttered. "Efficient," Ward corrected. Over the next 5 days, the tide shifted. Human engineers turned ruined Velkarii reactors into forward operating power nodes. Scouts used decaying satellite networks to locate Xarn supply lines. Velkarii squads, once rigid and ceremonial, learned to move in staggered pairs, to sabotage, to ambush. The humans didn't just fight, they taught. One human, a sergeant named Briggs, led a joint squad behind Xarn lines with a stolen enemy beacon. They detonated charges under a Xarn munitions depot and exfiltrated under heavy fire, laughing the entire way. "They fight like it's a game," said Commander Varys, watching through a drone feed. "No," Offlon said, eyes fixed on the screen. "They fight like they've already accepted death. It frees them." Still, not all Velkarii understood. Some officers questioned the human recklessness, the lack of formality. One even accused them of dishonor during a briefing. Ward had leaned forward slowly, his voice cold. "We don't do honor. We do victory." On the 7th day, a captured Xarn officer was brought to the command tent. It trembled in its bonds, 6 red eyes darting around the room. Ward stepped in, arms crossed. "Why are you afraid?" he asked. The Xarn hissed. "You are not like the others." Ward leaned closer. "You're damn right. You strike without pattern. You waste lives. You set your own wounded as bait. You improvise. It is irrational." Ward smiled, but it was a wolf smile. "We call it being human." Later, Offlon sat alone at a makeshift table, reviewing casualty reports. Losses had stabilized. For the first time in months, their side was winning more than it was losing. Still, the cost was high. He heard footsteps. Ward dropped a ration pack onto the table. "You look worse than I do," the colonel said. "We were a ceremonial people once," Offlon said. "Honor, tradition, order. The war broke that. But you humans seem born in the fire." Ward nodded. "We are. Long time ago, our worlds burned. Xarn hit us first, before they hit you. We didn't scream. We built, trained, waited, and when the time was right, we came back. Your unit, Relentless. Are you all that's left?" Ward's gaze drifted toward the tent flap, where rows of human soldiers were reloading, laughing, singing off-key. "No," he said. "We're just the beginning." That night, the Velkarii celebrated in silence. No fireworks, no speeches, just a new kind of hope. They knew the war was not yet over, but no longer felt lost. Across the ridge, a human sniper team watched a distant Xarn convoy. One whispered into her comm, "Target acquired. Operation Roach begins at dawn." The galaxy had seen many warriors, but none like these. None who smiled through pain. None who bled and laughed and taught others to do the same. The counteroffensive had begun, and it was human, the last push. The rain fell black with ash. It soaked through the cracks of battered armor and pooled in the ruins of what had once been the Velkarii High Spire. Now just broken stone and scorched memory. At the base of the shattered tower, the combined human Velkarii army prepared for the final push. The Xarn had retreated to their last command fortress, a bioengineered mountain of living metal and pulsing light, half buried in the canyons beyond the capital shell. It was the source of their hive signals, the origin of the invasion. Kill it, and the war ended. Survive it, and something worse might follow. Colonel Ward stood before his troops, helmet tucked under one arm, eyes scanning the crowd. His voice, when he spoke, was calm and hard as gunmetal. This is it. We don't get another shot. Behind him, holograms showed assault routes and secondary fallback plans. Not that any of them intended to fall back. Xarn Fortress is defended by heavy artillery nests, shield nodes, and 3 nested hive levels. Intel suggests a central mind core, a neural command organ. We breach it, we break them. Offlon stepped forward beside him. He no longer wore ceremonial robes. His once pristine armor was cracked and dented, stained with blood, some his own, most not. The Velkarii will take the northern flank, he said. We have trained under your soldiers. We will not falter. Ward nodded. Good. Relentless will spearhead the breach. As always. As always. The storm broke just after midnight. Under the cover of chaos, the assault began. Human drop teams fell like comets, slamming into the outer rim of the fortress with brutal grace. Explosions lit the sky in rapid bursts, synchronized with precise, kinetic strikes. The Xarn responded in full force, swarms of bio-drones, living cannons tunneling shock beasts. But the humans had prepared. One squad used their own blood to tag Xarn vision clusters for guided artillery. Another rigged captured Xarn charges into suicide traps, detonating choke points to clear the path for Velkarii forces. Inside the fortress, the corridors pulsed with sickly light. The walls were alive, part muscle, part alloy, and screamed when breached. The Velkarii hesitated at first, but the humans did not. They moved with clinical violence, gunning down everything that moved. Offlon led his squad personally, flanking through a side tunnel. They found a spawning chamber and razed it with thermal charges. He didn't recognize himself in the reflection of his bloodied blade, and that was fine. He was winning. At the core chamber, Ward's team met resistance beyond anything encountered before. The command node pulsed like a beating heart, and around it hovered the Xarn Prime, a towering creature of fused limbs and blades, wrapped in psychic armor. 3 humans were cut down in the first 10 seconds. Another took a spike through the chest but kept firing, crawling toward the base of the node. Push forward, Ward bellowed, unloading his rifle, switching to pistol then knife. His armor cracked, his shoulder dislocated. Still he moved. The Xarn Prime surged forward, but it made a mistake. It ignored the injured soldier crawling at its feet. Private Deeks, barely 19, last in his class, always quiet, detonated the thermite charge strapped to his chest at point blank. The explosion shattered the command node. The Xarn Prime screamed once, high, panicked, human, before collapsing in a heap of broken limbs. Across the battlefield, the hive forces faltered. Units dropped mid-charge. Beasts convulsed and went still. The fortress spasmed like a dying animal, then began to collapse from within. Hours later, silence returned. Not the fearful silence of occupation, but something new. Peace. Offlon found Ward seated outside the ruins, his arm in a makeshift sling, one eye swollen shut. He was sipping bad coffee, watching the sun rise. You did it, Offlon said. Ward shook his head slowly. We did. The Velkarii general lowered himself beside him. Will you stay? No, Ward said. There are other wars. Other calls. Offlon nodded. We will rebuild. Better this time. Ward smiled faintly. That's what we fight for. The humans left the next day. No parades. No medals. Just silent departure. The sky burned briefly as their ships ascended, and then they were gone. But their legacy remained, in tactics, in rebuilt alliances, and in the eyes of Velkarii children who now studied war not as ceremony, but survival. The war had been lost, until relentless human soldiers showed up and reminded the galaxy what it meant to fight back.